Should the Denver Broncos sign this recently released big name quarterback? What's up, guys? Welcome to Denver Broncos Syndicate, part of the Sports Syndicate family of channels where we are dedicated to bringing you content about our favorite sports teams. I am your host, Gage Madrid. Before we jump in, guys, if you could just do me a big favor and smash the like button on this video as well as subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it. We are just 9 subscribers away from 1,400, guys. Let's see if we can get there by the end of the day. I really believe that is possible. So if you have yet to subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate if you could do so. So a big name NFL quarterback has recently become available on the free agent market, as it was announced earlier today that the Washington Commanders have released quarterback Carson Wentz. Wentz had no guaranteed money left on his contract, and this move will save Washington about $26 million this offseason. The former number 2 overall pick by the Philadelphia Eagles is now poised to join his 4th team in 4 seasons, assuming that he plays this upcoming year. One topic of conversation here in the Mile High City is, should that 4th team be the Denver Broncos? Of course, the Broncos already have their solidified starter in Russell Wilson, but it is possible that the team may look to add a veteran quarterback to provide an insurance policy should Russell Wilson play poorly or get injured. Although Russ was one of the most durable quarterbacks over the first 10 years of his career, over the past 2 years he has missed 5 games due to injury. On top of that, we all know that Russell Wilson's play left plenty to be desired last year. Although a good chunk of Russell Wilson's issues last year could be pinpointed towards injuries on the team around him as well as incompetent coaching from Nathaniel Hackett, plenty of those issues were also on Russell Wilson himself. The hope is that he'll be able to correct these issues now that the Broncos have brought in Sean Payton, but there is a chance that that won't happen. If that does happen, or if Russell Wilson gets hurt, the Broncos are going to want to have a dependable veteran backup quarterback. And one guy who could fill that role, according to some, is Carson Wentz. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of bringing Carson Wentz to Denver, and I will break down why. I'm pretty certain everybody knows the career saga of Carson Wentz. Had an MVP type season in his second year after being drafted number 2 overall in 2016 by the Eagles out of North Dakota State. In 2017, in the first 13 games, the Eagles posted an 11-2 record, and Carson Wentz led the NFL with 33 touchdown passes to just 11 interceptions, along with a QBR of 101.9. Unfortunately, he ended up tearing his ACL in Week 13 against the Los Angeles Rams, leaving Nick Foles to go on and take the Eagles on their miraculous Super Bowl run. Carson Wentz definitely would have won MVP that season had he not gotten injured. There's no debate about that. Unfortunately, from there, his career has just been a constant downward spiral. In 2018, he struggled coming back from his injury and ended up missing the final 5 games of the season with a back injury. Then in 2019, he actually bounced back and had a career high in passing yards with 4,039, along with 27 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, also leading the Eagles to the playoffs. Unfortunately, in the first quarter of that playoff game, he ended up taking a hit from Jadeveon Clowney and suffered a concussion. That, to date, has been the only time Carson Wentz has played in a playoff game. In 2020, things just fell off a cliff for both Carson Wentz and the Eagles as a whole. The Eagles went 3-8-1 in games that Wentz started. He tied Drew Lock for the lead league in interceptions, and he was benched in the latter half of the year in favor of Jalen Hurts. Now, as we all know, that move has worked out fantastically for the Eagles so far. The following offseason, Wentz was traded to the Indianapolis Colts, reuniting him with his old offensive coordinator Frank Reich. Although if you look at the numbers, Wentz didn't have a bad year. He threw for 3,500 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He had some boneheaded plays that usually came up at the worst time possible that cost the Colts at least 3 games. That all culminated in their Week 18 loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Colts ended up getting eliminated from playoff contention. In turn, Jim Irsay ended up basically exiling Carson Wentz from Indianapolis, and they shipped him off to the Commanders this offseason. things didn't go much better for Carson Wentz in Washington this season. He started the first 6 games of the year and played quite poorly in those games. He ended up suffering an injury in Week 6 against the Chicago Bears and went on to miss some significant time in the season. When he returned, Taylor Heinicke had solidified himself as the Commanders' starter. Although later in the year, Taylor Heinicke did end up getting benched due to poor play, and the Commanders reinserted Wentz. The team had to win their final 2 games of the season to stay alive in playoff contention, so they ended up starting Carson Wentz for their first one against the Cleveland Browns, and he played absolutely terrible. He threw 3 interceptions, and that was the last time we saw Carson Wentz as a Washington Commander. Not only has Carson Wentz had an up-and-down career on the field, reports coming out of the locker room in both Philadelphia and Indianapolis do not paint a very good picture of Carson Wentz as a leader. Carson Wentz has been tabbed as selfish, arrogant, and a me-first kind of guy. That's not somebody I'm so sure would be willing to be a backup, especially to a, if we're being honest, kind of similar personality type in Russell Wilson. I feel like those 2 personalities would absolutely clash. So yeah, I don't feel like Carson Wentz would be a very good fit here in Denver for that reason alone. And on top of that, his on-the-field play these past couple of years has just been inconsistent. And mind you, in Indianapolis, he had Frank Reich, his offensive coordinator, during that MVP season calling plays for him again. Now granted, that team in Indianapolis was nowhere near as talented as the 2017 Eagles team that won the Super Bowl, but still, man, Carson Wentz had his dream play caller and still couldn't make it work in Indianapolis. I don't feel like Sean Payton would put up with a lot of selfishness and a me-first attitude, especially from their backup quarterback of all things. So I don't know, man, I just don't feel like Carson Wentz makes a whole lot of sense in the Mile High City. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if Wentz reunited with Frank Reich once again out in Carolina. Those two seem to have a really tight bond, and Wentz at least plays decent football when Frank Reich is his play caller. I don't feel like Frank Reich was the one who wanted Wentz out of Indianapolis in 2021. That was almost all Jim Irsay. So I feel like the relationship between Wentz and Reich is still heavily intact, so one place that I would keep an eye on for him is Carolina. But again, I just don't feel like Denver's a good fit. But do you guys disagree with me? Do you guys feel like Carson Wentz would be a good fit in the Mile High City? And why? Drop those comments down below. I would love to hear from you. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. And while you're at it, be sure to follow me on Twitter at Gage Madrid NFL for continuing NFL coverage. And for now, guys, this has been another episode of Denver Broncos Syndicate. I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.